how much harder has the problem become to solve since say things left off in 2012?
Well, thanks for raising the issue of cost of living adjustments. I forgot to mention when I described the 83 reforms that another part of that was delaying cost of living adjustments. That actually was a pretty significant component of the package deal, and that was another benefit reduction. In 2012, the Obama administration was trying to cut a grand bargain on the federal budget with congressional Republicans who control the House and Senate at that point. And one of the components they agreed to was changing the way cost of living adjustments, COLAs, are calculated to using a measure of inflation called the chained CPI. Now, most economists, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, think this chain weighted CPI is a better measure of inflation than the one that is currently used, but it also would tend to pay lower COLAs for Social Security retirees. That was something the Obama administration had agreed to, had included in his budget. The reason it wasn't implemented was because the congressional Republicans pulled out of the deal, because part of the deal was there's also going to be some tax increases and the congressional Republicans wouldn't go along with it. So that's how that fell apart. But just looking at both of them, these are examples of how the sausage gets made. That all sorts of promises get broken because they were promises that should have been made in the first place. But that's how you come together to form some package that can actually pass, that can actually fix Social Security. Bob, you asked about, how does the passage of time make it more difficult to fix Social Security? And the simple answer to that is that because Social Security is underfunded by somewhere north of $20 trillion, it means we need to have either $20 trillion of tax increases or $20 trillion of benefit cuts or some combination of that to keep the system solvent. If you don't do that, it goes insolvent. The longer you wait, it means the more Americans are exempted from bearing any of that burden. If you had raised taxes beginning around 1990, when we first realized that Social Security needed to be reformed again, well, Social Security could be solvent today, but for the last 30 years, people would have been paying higher taxes. I calculated if we had raised taxes as needed, beginning when Social Security's deficits reappeared, that would have imposed an additional $125,000 of taxes on a person who's going to be retiring in 2035. By avoiding reform, they skipped that. They didn't have to bear any of that burden. The only way we're going to get it back is by cutting their benefits. So the delay is that it exempts more and more Americans, current retirees, people nearing retirement, from bearing any of that $20 trillion burden, which means that later people, our kids, are going to have to bear more of it. Any sort of cost is easier to bear if you spread it out over more and more people. So they each bear just a little bit of it. The longer we delay, we're concentrating that cost on a smaller number of people who, to be honest, did nothing to deserve it. My kids, my grandkids, when they come along, they didn't create any of this problem, but they're going to have to bear it because, to be honest, American citizens and American politicians are being selfish. They want to kick the can down the road and make somebody else bear the cost of their mistakes.
Reminds me of something that Joe Minerick used to say. Joe Minerick from the Committee for Economic Development, when we used to go around on fiscal wake-up tours, would show a picture of his granddaughter and say, "This is not her fault, but it is her problem."
Precisely.
Only because we're making it.